We have the Breeders' Cup World Thoroughbred Championships, 14 championship races over Friday and Saturday, and we are going to be previewing all 14 of those. Pick fives. We're going to get you all set up. We'll show you some graphics, some Timeform US graphics. We'll talk to Will Gordon from Total Performance Data. We'll talk more about that in just a minute. I'm your host, Gino Bucola, alongside Alexa Zepp from Daily Racing Forum, and we are really excited to talk Breeders' Cup with all of you.
We are. Breeders' Cup really is like the best 2 days of the year for horse racing. It is so much fun. The energy is great. It's a high stakes event. There's over $33 million up for grabs for these horses here. It's a high fashion event. It's one of those times you get to go to the track, wear the fancy hats, wear the fancy dresses. It's packed with people. It really is the best of the year.
So think about it like how normally like a track meet, there are divisions, and every division will have like a culmination of the championship event. So we'll have on Friday 5 races with the babies, the young horses, the 2-year-olds. It's Future Stars Friday. We'll see all the juveniles on Friday. Then we flip the script to Saturday, and we will have 9 more Breeders' Cup races. You'll have the main event, the Classic, right in the middle of the day. So we're going to get you set up for all of those. We'll talk some pick fives, and mainly we want to lead you in the right direction when it comes to handicapping and playing the races on Friday and on Saturday. So before we get into a lot of the setting and more important, scenery, wagers, all those kinds of things, we have to meet our first guest here, and that is Will Gordon from Total Performance Data. Will, thank you so much for hanging out with us from TPD. Now, Alexa was stroking the chin a little earlier when we were talking. What is Total Performance Data? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I will, but can I echo the scene setting and say Breeders' Cup, my first memory of this was watching it at Greyhound Stadium, which has now been taken down, sadly, in Wimbledon, and watching Giant's Causeway coming agonizingly close in the dirt race, which is what City of Troy is trying to do on Saturday.
Awesome.
Can he follow in the footsteps of that absolute beast of a horse?
And how international this year, right?
It's so international.
In the Classic with the horses from Japan, from all over the place. You have
Forever Young, City of Troy, so Japan, Ireland, America, France, what could be better? And racing is getting so international and global, and this is super exciting. So yeah, Total Performance Data, I set it up on the back of owning some racehorses, fast ones, slow ones, medium ones, and then having a data business. And so we're really just trying to, I saw a gap in putting sensors on these great horses to try and tell a few more stories as to how they perform the way they perform, to add to the color and the content of the day. So we're excited to show you some of the kind of run-ups to this this great championship event from their sort of prep runs around the world.
Yeah, and a lot of people watching this, we have a lot of sports fans, charts, probably a lot of younger people too who may not know all of the racing, and I see they like, and nowadays, charts, really easy to look at, really visual. We have a lot of people that like to see that, and those are some of the graphics that we have here.
Exactly. So think of it as sort of top trump speed measures. People might want to talk about miles per hour as opposed to lengths gained or going descriptions. So we're just sort of speed and performance and trying to talk the language of cyclists and baseball and win predictions and stuff. So yeah, that's the game.
And the more information that we have when we're coming to play the races, that's what's key. Do we have a specific horse we're going to take a look at here?
Yeah, well, a good example is Governor Sam in the, is that one we can look at now?
Yeah, sure. Let's take a look.
And we're really excited to work with DRF to see them kind of display this information, which really comes from 200 updates per second of sort of GPS and accelerometer data, and you can distill it into effectively a really cool sort of breakdown of the horse. Now, what we can see from Governor Sam here is how hellishly quick this horse is out of the gate. So he can get to 30 miles an hour in 3.4 seconds. So that is a very, very fast, typical American, super quick horse out of the gate. His top speed, as you'd imagine, is extremely high there. So he is the fastest compared to the horses today in terms of time out of the gate, predicted time out of the gate, and top speed. Now his average speed, as you would expect, can't quite sustain the 45.6 miles an hour that he did in his last run. And then you notice, going into slightly more biometric metrics, that he has quite a long stride and not so many strides per second. And that would be a concern at Del Mar with its kind of swinging off the tight bend, quite a short straight. Is it a furlong on the turf? It's not long to kind of lengthen. So for me, that's a negative. For Del Mar horses over sprints, you'll kind of want to see a stride frequency more in the 2.4, 2.45 range. So here's a horse that's going to burst out of the gate, but arguably get found out because he can't quite quicken off that final bend.
So if anyone out there is looking to try to find out a little more information about it, they want to take a dive in and maybe use some of these graphics or get as much information as possible, where can we find some of that?
So yeah, so you can see it through the DRF products we're looking at here, and also find us at TPD Zone on X, as well as through equibase.com and attheraces.com.
And we're going to put you on the hot seat in a little bit, because you're going to be handicapping some of these races with us. So we'll see, put some of those products right into work in just a moment. So in the rest of our show, we're going to bring on a couple different guests. We'll have Tyler Frausto from First Bet, and he will help us handicap a couple races. We'll have our buddy Roberto Rodriguez from DRF and Espanol. He'll also help us handicap a couple races. So every single race, we will set you up. You'll get a look and a quick tidbit on every horse running in every Breeders' Cup race. So maybe a positive thought, maybe a negative thought, maybe a horse that we're using, or maybe a horse that we're wagering on. But we'll give you a little bit of a look at all of these horses who have qualified for the biggest races, because that's something I think that's worth mentioning. Just getting to this point is very impressive. Yeah. And we all know
fit, right? Not only winning your races, but you can't miss a beat, can you? The trainers worrying every day. We are in early November. There's a lot to go wrong, isn't there, between their sort of debuts in the spring, summer races to get here today. So incredible effort from the trainers.
A trainer told me one time that is one of the harder things to do, is when you have the really, really good horses and you have that target date, and then you have to work backwards and just make sure no hiccups, all the works are good, everything's in order. Because when you are just trying to get your horse to certain races, it's not as much pressure, right? You're going to get to the race when your horse is fit, when they're ready. But when you know you have to be ready to rock on November 1st, November 2nd, that's a totally different thing with that time clock on you.
Absolutely. No horse is almost saying at the beginning of the season, I'm aiming at the Breeders' Cup. Their kind of championship is earlier in the season, and then it's a case of, they're surprising as to how good they are. Can we keep the show on the road until this magical first Saturday in November? And so to be here is an incredible feat of sportsmanship.
I have a question for you, because you mentioned with Governor Sam how he was really fast out of the gate like an American horse, and this is such a global weekend with all these horses. So how do you see with your data the difference for European horses, foreign horses versus these American horses?
So a European trained sprinter might do 4.5 to 5 seconds to get to 30 miles an hour. And an American turf horse might do kind of sub 4 seconds. So there's a reasonable difference there. And I think that's one of the things that Europeans try and practice a lot before coming here, is being able to kind of burst out of the gate. And on the dirt, I know it matters, which we can come on to. So yeah, so there's about a second difference on average.
And that's one thing that's really interesting, Alexa, too. I think we're seeing that with the horses coming over from Japan also, is that they're figuring out the style a little bit more, because these horses are also talented, but the racing style here is just a little bit different, a little bit quicker early, right? The tempo is a little quicker, and sometimes speed can be the equalizer for horses that aren't quite as talented. So it is fascinating to see horses come over here with different training methods, different barns that do things completely different. We see when Aiden's Army comes in, how they all train together out on the track. We see the horses from Japan that are extremely fit. So it's fascinating to see how everybody takes their steps along the road.
So not only is the horse the champion in their country, but they've got to win under another country's style of racing.
Right.
Yeah.
With the sound
and you might think a second, well, that's a second. Well, in horse racing, a second is 5 lengths. So if you're a horse who wants to lead, and you're from Europe and you're breaking a second slower than American horses, that's a big hurdle to overcome.
Yeah. So we can see some European horses can break faster than that, but I'm just giving you the sort of on average. That's the sort of the gap. City of Troy will come on to. He can actually break pretty quickly, but he's in stall 3. So can he break faster than sort of the dirt warriors outside of him, and if not, dirt in his face? But he can break very quickly. So we can sort of look at, do we see attributes from prior races that show that they can run to today's conditions? That's what it's all about.
We're going to take a commercial break in just a second. When we do, after that, we're going to return and we're going to talk about the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint. So if you want to follow along with us, we're going to start out with race number 6 on the Friday Breeders' Cup card, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint. Now, we have so much information for you at shop.drf.com if you want to get help handicapping the races. We have our Breeders' Cup packages available for you right now. In those packages, you can get past performances, site here at Del Mar, giving you all the insight of horses, how they're leading up to the races, and betting strategies for Friday and for Saturday. So those daily racing form, Breeders' Cup packages available for you, everything you need to succeed. As we get ready for our first commercial break, you want to get them out, you want to get them set. We're going to start horse by horse. It's going to be race number 6, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint. We're going to put Will on the hot seat. Alexa's got some selections for you.
he will be 2-7 against top 5 opponents in his 6 full seasons with the Buckeyes.
Now you're going to take on the road, one of the best rush defenses in the country in Penn State. You're already having trouble rushing the ball. So what does that mean, Ben? That means Ohio State is going to have to rely on Will Howard to throw the ball on the road.
The Early Line, only on Sports Grid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're gonna go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's gonna help me get the job done. There is not gonna be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on Sports Grid.
We are back on the Breeders' Cup handicapping special. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. Now, we're going to get into the meat here. We're going to get into 14 Breeders' Cup races, and we're going to start with race number 6 on the Friday Breeders' Cup card. So this one is going to go around 2:45 or so Pacific time, local time, so 5:45 or so Eastern time. And there is a scratch of the one out on bail. This was a scratch that came in just recently. So the one out on bail is out. That means I'll send it right on over to Will to talk about Asterius, Big Mojo, and if you have a thought on Magnum Force.
Yeah, so good race to start with here. We got our kind of fastest, most precocious sort of turf sprinters coming over for this. I think it's interesting that Asterius, who is kind of above Big Mojo and Magnum Force in the market, really interesting that when he faced these horses last time, he was slower than Big Mojo and Magnum Force for all but one furlong. So he basically won that race by braking very quickly and doing the fastest first furlong, getting to 30 miles an hour the quickest, and they just couldn't quite catch him.
And these 3 horses, they all face each other, in this last race, which is kind of strange. We rarely see in a Breeders' Cup like this that you're going to have 3 horses right next to each other that are all coming out of the same race.
Isn't that crazy? That is crazy. So we'd expect Asterius to maybe break faster, but I think if you look at what really happened in the race last time, Big Mojo had the top speed, quicker late speed all throughout the race. He did the quickest furlong. Magnum Force at double the odds are a much bigger value. Again, interestingly, other than that very first furlong, he was superior to Asterius. So it's kind of interesting in a turf sprint race. You kind of you can nick those wins, can't you? And then you can be the best horse and not win for 3 or 4 times in a row. It's really tough having a sprinter because it's quite a lot has to go right. Draw, how you brake, how you handle the bend, your position. So our data points to Big Mojo possibly doing better than Asterius, with Magnum Force being interesting at the price.
Alexa, let's get to the middle part of this race. You're going to talk a little bit about the 5, 6, and 7 here.
Yeah, Arizona Blaze is the 5. Lost to 2 others in here, though. Whistle Jacket and Shareholder. Time form figures for him are improving, but in my opinion, just not really fast enough and as fast as others in here. The 6, Jet Sweep Joe. As much as I want to root for this horse because my friend actually owns it and it was named for her late husband, so I'm going to be cheering him on, but I don't think he's going to win. He lost to Governor Sam and out on bail, which is out of the race now, but 3 times losing to those horses. Hasn't really tried graded stakes company, so his figures are kind of declining. Not my selection in here, but Whistle Jacket, the 7, coming from the Aidan O'Brien barn. Probably the strongest of the European contenders, in my opinion. This will be his first North American start, and Aidan O'Brien wins 25% of the time for this move and 33% of the time for graded stakes here. So he knows how to have him ready and bring him over. Time form ratings for him are really strong as well, mid to high 90s, and has won 3 out of 7 starts and 1 at this distance. So Whistle Jacket is definitely live.
Koro Siege, Will, is the 8. This horse is been very impressive in the 2 starts over in Japan. We'll talk a little bit about the next 3 runners in here, 8, 9, 10. Anything positive to mention on any of those?
Well, I was going to say just on Whistle Jacket.
Please, go ahead.
Very, obviously a super classy horse. That, very classy connections. Slight concern that slightly lower stride frequency, which is how many times per second the horse turns over its legs. So it's a long strider with quite a relatively lower stride frequency. So again, you'd want Whistle Jacket to be in the lead or very close to the lead, hitting the straight. You wouldn't want him to be sort of falling back. And what has he drawn? He's drawn 7, so that's a little bit against him. Shareholder, very, 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 very fast acceleration, 2.42 strides per second, which bodes well here, and one at Royal Ascot. So that's one. I was going to mention Smash It, an interesting outsider, appropriately named Smash It, who kind of on bare kind of average speed predictions we've got as number 1, because he has a long stride and a very high stride frequency. So at a big price, Smash It for Todd Fincher and Juan Hernandez could be an interesting outsider.
A couple others to discuss. Governor Sam. We took a look at Governor Sam a little bit earlier on. This is a really sharp horse who has won 3 in a row. Gate to Wire, right next door. The blinkers will be coming on for this one, who was second behind Menti. Most recently in the Futurity. Ides of March is another Aidan O'Brien runner who's very classy and who has done very little wrong, has won back-to-back races, including a Group 3 over in Ireland last time out. And now drawing into the field because of the scratch is Pally Kitten. So that's the field here for the juvenile sprint, or the juvenile turf sprint, which is going to go as race number 6. Now we can take a minute and go through our selections a little bit and talk about how we are looking at this race. So Alexa, why don't you start us off? How are you looking at this race from a selection standpoint?
Yeah, like I said, I really like Whistle Jacket. It is my top selection. Second behind that, Asterius, Ides of March as well, I'm very interested in. And then a Corosieg, actually, I think a price. What are the morning line odds on a Corosieg?
Yeah, I think we're in actually probably one of the shorter prices, I think, in here. Yeah. So let's get to you, Will. What are your thoughts? We had like 1 through 4 selections. Who are you looking at?
So it's a sprint. It's going to be extremely challenging to get this one right. If we get this one right, we are off to a flyer. I'm going to be loyal with Big Mojo, number 3. And then for a bit of fun, go to Smash It, number 14. And then I think it's interesting to go Magnum Force and then number 11 being... Can't see who number 11 is. Yeah, Gate to Wire, who is basically second on raw speed. So yeah, good luck to everybody. It's going to be a intriguing context to solve.
So for me, I was looking at the race that Asterius, Big Mojo, Magnum Force come out of. I think that's like a really key race. And if you're looking at those 3 horses and you think all of them are a little bit live, Magnum Force was actually favored over the both of them and wasn't that far behind the both of them. So I definitely want to include Magnum Force in some of the exotics because of that. From a value-based standpoint, I think makes a whole lot of sense in there. Asterius, Big Mojo, super logical. We've all talked about it, Corosieg a little bit. And the 7 Whistle Jacket, who is another major player. So I think the consensus from all of us that we're talking is just, I didn't feel like there was a really strong American contingent in this particular race to start.
We're lucky. Yeah,
Right.
You're kind of saying after you.
I was going to say that's kind, right? That was a kind way of saying it. Yeah.
Kind.
This is one for the Euros for sure. I mean, turf is their specialty, and they tend to come over here and dominate us.
Where's the Chad Brown or the Wesley Ward? Keeneland winner by 20 lengths, just missing in this race.
Wesley Ward has won 3 out of the 6 years that this race has been run, but he doesn't have any in this year. So this is only the 7th edition of this one. A lot of these races started in 1984, but some of them have been added as time has gone on. So,
So I think we're saying an each way or a play. Go for a horse at a big price here. It's kind of worth it. It's not worth putting in a huge stake on the top of the market.
Absolutely.
Given it's a sprinters and given how open it looks.
And the variables in the sprints, right? Like one horse, slow start, you're behind, you're in a little bit of trouble, you're in a little bit of traffic. So 1 down, 13 more to go, and we had our first small victory because we made it through the first commercial break. So our producer Mike and our producer Rich took a little bit of a sigh of relief after we made it through break number 1. Still rocking and rolling over there though with a big smile. We're getting set for our break. Now we're gonna go a little bit out of order when we talk about these races individually because we have our time with Will, and we're gonna use our time with Will to talk about a couple of the grass races. So we'll make sure when we go through the pick 5s, in order everything. But up next, we're gonna be talking about the Breeders' Cup Juvenile.
It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of a week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was thinking! But he had that program was already going there!
Only on Sports Grid.
Tatum has fixed that hitch. He now shoots it at the top of his jump. His release is really pure. And right now he's shooting it at 49% from three. Now, I'm not saying he's going to shoot at 49% from three for the season. But if he's at 42, 43%, Lord have mercy, look out below. Jason Tatum, right now, my number 6 player in the NBA.
Betting above the rim. Only on Sports Grid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on Sports Grid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. I am ready. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all people.
What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take, hot take. I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today. Only on Sports Grid.
Are you okay with him moving to the head of the class of the Heisman with those 2 games? Because he wasn't even in the discussion before those 2 games.
This is a big opportunity for Dylan if he wants to continue to make his case for the Heisman Trophy, and I think he's shown that. I mean, what is he, a 6th-tier player who's going to probably end up setting most of the passing marks because he's been around for so long? So why not also throw a Heisman Trophy in the mix?
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on Sports Grid.
Welcome back to the Breeders' Cup Handicapping Special from Daily Racing Form. We are now going to get into race number 10 for Friday. This one is the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. Before we do, though, Will, why don't you remind the folks out there some of the terminology that we might be using, especially when we're looking at the graphics?
Yeah, so stride frequency is really acceleration, and stride length is kind of how much you lengthen your stride and gallop. So in the race we're going to talk about now, the number of strides per second is not as important as as being high on some of the other metrics, including a slightly longer stride. And the last race, the sprint, you want 2.5 strides per second. And
no margin for error there.
Yeah, exactly. And on this sort of race, they're more like 2.3 strides per second. And then the early gate speed is really fascinating. Kind of how fast do they actually break out of the gate? We're not playing the game of trying to predict that. We're measuring relative to their last performance, how many seconds do they take to hit 30 miles an hour? And top speed is useful too. But yeah, this is a very exciting race, this one.
I'm going to talk about the first couple horses. Satono Carnival on the inside, the Japanese bred, undefeated, but we haven't seen this horse since July, so I have some questions, and also we'll be stretching out. We have not seen go the mile on the grass. Dream On's a little interesting because he was 3rd in the summer, but he just moved a little bit early, and it was his first start going long. The horse has some ability, so maybe one to keep an eye on at least underneath price, because could give you a good run for your money with some early speed. Noble Confessor, actually still a maiden, was behind a major player in here, Zulu Kingdom, last time out. Those are the inside 3. Alexa, why don't you pick it up here with the number 4?
Yeah, the 4 is Alcudra with Charles Appleby from his barn, who actually won this at Del Mar the last time with Modern Games. And Alcudra and New Century have just been duking it out in their last 2 starts. Alcudra lost last out, 2nd behind New Century, who's the 11 in this race. Was 7 wide, bumping down the stretch, put up a strong buyer's figure that race, and has had improving time form rating. So definitely a major contender. Zulu Kingdom from Chad Brown's barn, undefeated, but you got to look at who's he beat, right? And, he beat Tenacious Leader and Noble Confessor, who are 2 in here, but they're 2 I don't really favor. So he only beat them by a neck. I'm not a huge fan of Zulu Kingdom. The 6 is Iron Man Cal from Phil D'Amato's barn. For me, the numbers don't quite add up for him to make it in here. He did win the Grade 3 Zuma, but it was due to disqualification.
Will Siegel's 11 is an Irish-bred runner who was in the Dewhurst last time out. Anything you want to mention about the next 3 horses in here?
Yeah, so my heart is with Seagull's 11 and the Wacko Kid. Seagull's 11 is owned by some Brighton Premiership footballers, so it'd be good to keep them in the ownership game. He's a mega strong, tough-looking horse, came 4th in the Dewhurst on ground that didn't suit him particularly well. His individual statistics don't really sing out, though. I'll try and contribute to the discussion of Al Qudra and New Century. That Woodbine race, effectively Al Qudra ran a more impressive race than the New Century, apart from not winning. He got checked. He was run every furlong. He ran faster. He was faster to break. He has a longer stride. He has a higher stride frequency than New Century, and he beat New Century on his first 2 starts. So kind of all the data, and you were saying, sort of points to the fact that he can upgrade that performance. It would be great to see New Century win for the new first season sire Kamiko, who won the English Guineas a few years ago. But yeah, Al Qudra looks to be the one to beat based upon those stats. But as I say, I'd love to see for my old trainer Hugo Palmer, Seagulls 11, and the Wacko Kid owned by the founder of Betfair. They're pretty interesting. But look, it's Al Qudra for me. Zulu Kingdom is interesting. Broke about half a second faster than a lot of these horses at Belmont at the Big A last time. And based upon his predicted average speed in the race, we've got him coming out top. So yeah, I think he could be pretty good. And Chad Brown's pretty effective on the turf. So
I'll mention a couple of the others that we didn't hit. Minaret Station, the 8 comes out of a Grade 2 win in the Bourbon, was 39-1, came rolling that day. Horse who I think is a little bit interesting is the 10 Menti, who's going to be stretching out because this horse is quick and might be able to show some of that speed. We're talking about how the speed could maybe be an equalizer. There are probably some classier horses overseas that have a little more foundation going long on the turf. Maybe the horses over here who have a little more speed, that's where you can see things maybe separate there.
So Menti has the highest stride frequency, effectively ranking #1 here. Yeah, that's an outlier. So he might make this a kind of ferocious test of pace, which may suit him or not. What has he drawn? He's drawn 10.
Yep.
So he might get to the front and they may not catch him. But yeah, he's an outlier in that he has a way of racing which is more like a kind of 5-6 furlong sprinter than a miler.
We talked a little bit about one of the horses to beat in here, New Century, Amori City, and Henri Matisse. Unfortunately, the outside draws, once you start getting that far out, it's just the post positions, you have like lack of options out there. And Tenacious Leader, we just found out was a late scratch just a little bit earlier. Dave Grennan had just posted that from DRF. So just something to keep an eye on there. Before we get to the selections, I want to remind everybody, Breeders Cup packages at shop.drf.com. Everything you need there. Will, moment of truth time. Give us your selections in the juvenile turf.
So I'm going to go for number 4, Al Qudra. To beat number 5, Zulu Kingdom, with New Century 3rd and Seagulls 11 4th, number 7.
Alexa, how about for you?
I agree with Al Qudra on top. Behind that, I have New Century, Menti, and Dream On.
And for me, I'm going to put the 10 Menti on top. I'll go 10, 11, 5. The 2 Dream On is a horse who I think has some tactical speed, might be able to save ground down there. If you're at least looking for horses to use on the bottom of your exotics, that might be a fun one. Last thoughts here, Will, before we go to a break?
It's a bit like the previous discussion. It's pretty open, right?
Yeah.
But this is great. This is the championship meeting. There ought to be a case to be made for all of them. This is what it's all about. The fact that we're all throwing up different rationale. This is racing. This is
He will be 2-7 against top 5 opponents in his 6 full seasons with the Buckeyes.
Now you're going to take on the road one of the best rush defenses in the country in Penn State. You're already having trouble rushing the ball. So what does that mean, Ben? That means Ohio State is going to have to rely on Will Howard to throw the ball on the road.
The early line, only on Sports Grid.
Are you okay with him moving to the head of the class at the Heisman with those 2 games? Because he wasn't even in the discussion before those 2 games.
This is a big opportunity for Dylan if he wants to continue to make his case for the Heisman Trophy, and I think he's shown that. You know, I mean, what is he, a 6th-tier player who's going to probably end up setting most of the passing marks because he's been around for so long? So why not also throw a Heisman Trophy in the mix?
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on Sports Grid.
I tend to do this a lot, by the way. I do it more in baseball with the anytime home run, where I may play 4 players hit home run. I call it covering the board. You know, if I take 4 players, bet the same amount on each, I only need to hit 2 of them and I win money.
He's already got, 438 rushing yards on the season. He's looking like the old LT days where the Chargers were able to have that strong, dominant running back.
Game time decisions, only on Sports Grid.
Welcome back to the Breeders' Cup Handicapping Special. Gino Bacola alongside Alexa Zepp. Tyler Frausto jumps in from First Bet, First Racing. Tyler, buddy, I know you, man. How's everything going on your end?
Everything's great so far. Happy to be here at Breeders' Cup. Enjoy the BCBC and all the experience that comes with it.
So you normally are holding down the fort over at Santa Anita. That's where you do a lot of work over there for First Bet, First Racing. Tell us a little bit about First Racing, kind of a overall encompassing with the track, and First Bet, a wagering site.
Right. So what I do primarily is I host most of the tournaments actually through our business side of things. And right now we actually brought in about 30-something players
for the BCBC?
into BCBC.
Awesome.
Year after year, we bring about 30 players into the big contests here, and NHC as well. So we're always like trying to find new things to bring people in and play the game a little bit differently.
For those who don't know, the BCBC is the biggest betting tournament like in the world for horse racing. It's a $10,000 buy-in. Last year, the winner walked away with over 600 grand. It is awesome.
Well, now we're going to put you in the hot seat, and we're going to see if you've got a few for us, too, because I know you can handicap the race, too. You're acting all coy and, like, over there, but you can pick a few winners. I've seen you hit a few tickets. So we're going to look at race number 9 for Friday. This is the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. We have the 2-year-olds. These are the boys. They're going to be going a mile and a 16th on the dirt. So we'll get things started. Alexa, you want to talk about the couple inside horses here for us?
Absolutely. So this race has a ton of pace in it. Like, there's almost everybody in here I feel like is going to want the lead. So East Avenue's one of them, you know, for Brendan Walsh with Tyler Gaffleone, morning line of 5-2, undefeated in 2 starts, winning both by over 5 lengths, and was handwritten out in both races. So we really haven't seen his ceiling yet. And last out, he stepped up to a mile and 16th in the graded 1 Breeders' Futurity and won with ease. I do think he should be the early leader out of everybody in here. You know, his 95 buyer in the Breeders' Futurity is potentially good enough to win here, and definitely with a little bit of small improvement. The average winning buyer speed figure of this race has been a 96.6, so pretty close to that 95 mark. The number 2 is Getaway Car for Bob Baffert. Needs the lead to win, and just not the fastest of the front-running horses in here. Hasn't improved with the added distance in his last 2 starts, so I really think this horse wants a bit shorter distance.
Let's talk about Hill Road, who is coming into this race and making the first dirt start. That's always really difficult in a spot like this when you just don't know how a horse will handle the surface. But producer Rich, I definitely want to look at the 4 Ferocious and the 5 Jonathan's Way, if we could flash both of them, because I think they're both major players in here. Ferocious is a horse who won his debut, then in his second start, he didn't ever look like he was running all that well, and then Chancellor McPatrick kind of flies by him on the outside, and it kicks him into another gear. In his third start, Ferocious was banging around in the gate before, so he might have a couple excuses. Jonathan's Way is really versatile. He showed us in his debut he doesn't need the lead, and then he came back, and he was very impressive, winning in the Iroquois. So I think both of them extremely live contenders. But Tyler, when we're talking juveniles, we're always going to be talking Bob Baffert at some point, and now we hit a couple Bob Bafferts in Citizen Bull and Gaming. We saw both of these horses run in Southern California. In fact, both of them actually have wins here at Del Mar over this track.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. Horse for course is always something that comes into play. If a horse consistently wins at the same track, same distance, or maybe a little bit different distance, but especially when a track's playing a little differently than it normally does. Like here at Del Mar this summer, it was a little bit of a different speed bias track. Yep. So seeing that, we're not sure what we're going to see this weekend, but if that comes into play again, this horse may love it.
Any preference of there are 3 Bafferts in here? Do you have any way that you rank them or stack them, or do you like anyone else of the runners?
Well, that being said, yeah, Gaming is probably my top contender in this race. Horse for course again, won over the Del Mar summer conditions of the dirt twice actually, and then the only thing that sets me back on this horse is the fact that JJ Hernandez rode on the debut, then Flavian Pratt, now Irad Ortiz.
Three different riders,
yeah. Which is a little odd to me, but at the same time, the horse obviously has proven itself over and over again. So I think the horse itself will go and hopefully win this race. And Citizen Bull also is great. Martin Garcia gets on board, which is great. Started off with that. And this horse comes out of the American Pharoah, which historically has produced 5 out of the last 10 juvenile winners.
True.
So we see those connections, Baffert and Garcia. They used to win a lot of races together, and now they're teaming back up again. Alexa, why don't you talk to us about a couple of the Japanese runners back-to-back?
I would love to, because this number 8, Shin Believe, is my sneaky long shot and one of my best long shots, I think, for the whole weekend. I love this horse by bloodline. By constitution, he's run once, he's won once in Japan, and he won by 5 lengths. And the comment line says, easy win. So we definitely know there's more there. Timeform US breeding rating, it gives them a 100 out of 100. So obviously best bred in here. They also gave $800,000 for this horse. So they have really high expectations for him. I have really high expectations for him.
I have 6 exclamation marks after exclamation marks. I wrote very impressive watching that race. So exclamation marks all over for that one.
Awesome. Okay, we're on the same page here. And then the 9, Okoro Azul, doesn't fit here, I don't think. It's actually the barn mate to Shin Believe. So, you know, when I first looked at this, I was like, why are they bringing this horse in? And I'm like, well, maybe get some experience, fill the plane, help keep Shin Believe comfortable, have a workout buddy in the morning. But for this race, I don't like the 9.
And the one they're all going to have to hold off is Chancellor McPatrick. What's kind of fun about this race is the inside horse and the outside horse are polar opposites, and they're probably going to be the 2 favorites in here. You have East Avenue, who's really quick, and he's only shown us he wants to go to the lead. He draws the inside. You have Chancellor McPatrick on the outside, total opposite. He's not fast at all early. He just gets outrun a little bit right after he breaks, and then he gets distanced, but he always comes flying, and he's 3 for 3. So it's really cool when you get to see a Breeders' Cup Juvenile that's like this, where you have the best horse from the East. You have the best horse from the Midwest, East Avenue. You have another one, Jonathan's Way, and then you have the trio of Baffert runners. You really do have a lot of the best juveniles all coming together in this race, and that's kind of how the Breeders' Cup races are supposed to be. We want to see the best from all over come together, like the best from all over come together and sit down on this table, like Tyler, like Alexa, like myself, like producer Rich, like producer Mike, like Audrey, the PA, just doing a fantastic job out here. Tyler, let's get over to you for selections. Talk to us about how you stacked them in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile.
All right, in the Juvenile, I stacked it up. Looks like Gaming is my top choice. East Avenue is second. Then we're looking at Chancellor McPatrick. And last but not least, Citizen Bull.
Citizen Bull. So a lot of Baffert love over, and not surprising because these horses are very live and always very precocious. Alexa, talk to us about how you stack this race.
Well, y'all know I put the number 8, Shin Believe, on top, followed by East Avenue, who is going to take the lead in this race, I think, and then Jonathan's Way, and then Chancellor McPatrick. My thing with Chancellor McPatrick, okay, because he's the closer in here, right? And there is so much pace that there absolutely could be a pace meltdown, but I don't think there's going to be like the whole race meltdown. You know, like I still think some of those early horses are going to stay early, and I think they're going to be going so fast it's going to be hard to get caught.
And you also have probably a tier of horses who could be sitting in the spot right in front of Chancellor McPatrick, right? Maybe like Ferocious, Jonathan's Way, some of those horses. We don't know what Shin Believe, from a tactic standpoint, really what to expect from that one too, and how that will kind of stack up. So yeah, I agree with you. Chancellor McPatrick won to hold off, but at a short price with that running style, it's kind of hard to bet that horse to win for me.
Yeah.
Definitely a horse I would use in exactas and tries and
Definitely
and supers.
underneath. I mean, anytime you have a horse that you really like that is a closer, is going to be coming from way back, I mean, they're subject to deal with a bunch of pace issues, you know, and traffic and all sorts of things. So that is always a risk when, you know, you want to come at the end and you have to deal with what you've been given in front of you.
Yeah, there's too much work to do a lot of the time. So for me, my selections will be the 5, Jonathan's Way, the 4, Ferocious. I think both of them very, very live, and I like the trips they could sit. The 10 and the 8 would be the other 2 that I'm going to use all over the exotics, Chancellor McPatrick. And then we talked about the real wild card X factor that could be Shin Believe. So selections from all of us. Hopefully we were able to lead you in the right direction. Tyler's going to hang around for one more segment with us, because now we'll flip over and we'll talk about the gals. We'll talk about the juvenile fillies in just a moment. But before we get to our next commercial break, a couple things to mention. We're going to mention it and we're going to remind you those Breeders' Cup packages. Shop.drf.com. Everything you need for both Friday and for Saturday. Past performances, clocker reports, and the betting strategies for both days. So everything you need there. Don't forget our YouTube channel too. Alexa, you're on there all the time with your pick threes. Dan Illman does a great job with Mike Beer. They preview all of the big races. You want to check those out. DRF.com. We have previews of every single Breeders' Cup race. We have an entire Breeders' Cup section with articles linked for all of the news, everything you need, so you can get all of your information in one spot. Dave Grenning and Mike Welsh have been out here giving you all sorts of great information with the horses in the morning on the clock.
Are you okay with him moving to the head of the class of the Heisman with those 2 games? Because he wasn't even in the discussion before those two games.
This is a big opportunity for Dylan if he wants to continue to make his case for the Heisman Trophy, and I think he's shown that. I mean, what is he, a sixth-tier player who's going to probably end up setting most of the passing marks because he's been around for so long? So why not also throw a Heisman Trophy in the mix?
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on Sports Grid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're gonna go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's gonna help me get the job done. There is not gonna be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on Sports Grid.
Welcome back to the Breeders' Cup handicapping special. Now we're going to get into another one of the juvenile races. We're going to go juvenile fillies. So we're going to talk about race number 7 on the Friday card. We still have Tyler hanging around with us here to discuss. Tyler, we did actually hear that I think just yesterday there was a major scratch in this race too. I thought one of the Bob Baffert runners, who probably would have been like a top 3 betting choice in here, right? Non-compliant, out, and that one I thought was a major player.
Absolutely.
So,
that horse not playing is a big change up in the race.
So, Alexa, we'll talk about the field in just a second. We'll go horse by horse in here. I thought overall what's interesting is you don't have a bunch of fillies with these really fast figures. You have one of them to the outside in Scottish Lassie, who has a really fast one. But other than that, these are a lot of fillies who are kind of competitive within their speed figures. So real curious to see who some of you are going to get into. Let's start in race number 7, Vodka with a Twist. I know that's what Rich wants as soon as we're done with this show. And I actually think that this filly is a little bit interesting because Vodka with the Twist has some foundation. And if you look at her last 2 starts, she was chasing Lone Speed a couple starts back with Nooney. And then last time, she had to do all the dirty work. She was probably best in that race, and she got run down late by Tenma. If you're looking for a big price to throw in the bottom of your exotics, I think Vodka with the Twist might be a fun one to use in the bottom of tries and of supers. Snow White showed speed in the debut and then was second in the Frisette, but the only problem is she was well defeated by Scottish Lassie. She was beaten by 9 lengths that day when finishing second in the Grade 1 Frisette. So we'll get to Immersive. Alexa, why don't you take over with the 3, 4, and 5?
Yeah, the 3 Immersive is in for Brad Cox, and Time Form US does predict a fast pace in this race, and Immersive likes to sit a length or 2 off the pace and then kind of grind them down at the end. So he has smart speed. He's won at this distance as well as going shorter, won the Grade 1 spin away, and it's a Godolphin home run. So I think this horse can be very dangerous with this pace setup. The 4 La Cara is the Grade 3 Pocahontas winner with tactical speed, won on the win as well as winning from closing from off the pace. Second fastest lifetime buyer of anybody in here in her win 2 back in her maiden special weight at Saratoga. Mark Cassidy won this 2 years ago with Wonder Wheel. Actually, it's kind of interesting. In this race, there has been 17 years. In the last 17 years, we've had 16 different trainers win. Wow. So this is not one of those races where we have, these repeat mega trainers who come in and
think
just
about
take
like
control.
Baffert or Dwayne Lucas or some of those who may have won a lot of juvenile races. That's a good point.
The only one who's won twice is Asmussen. So very interesting. And then the 5, Quicket got second in the Grade 1 Alcibiade at Keeneland at the beginning of October. And, trainer Tom Amos is 0 for 30 in graded stakes. So that's not great. That's not a great stat. And this would be a pretty big step up after last out in terms of speed figures. So probably a pass for me.
Tyler, we'll get to Otamina Shako, who I've just been so impressed with the Japanese runners and how every year they're sending over more horses, better horses. They're winning more big races each and every time. It's just difficult in a race like this for me with a horse like this when all she's done is sprint, just to feel like how is that going to stack up going longer against these fillies and how fast is she?
That's my number one note, actually, is stretching out for the first time to more than a mile and a 16. So you never know what's going to happen there. And I'm watching the workout. Horse breezes really nice. The jockey kind of gets down on the horse and the horse opens up a little bit. It's a nice workout, but workout can only say so much as what happens in the afternoon.
Yep, we talked about the 7 non-compliant, so that one is scratched. That's a major scratch. The 8 Noonie was the highly regarded Baffert runner earlier on in the year. She won her first race by 9 lengths. She won the Sorrento, but then in the Del Mar Debutante, she was a little bit disappointing. We thought maybe she didn't want to go that long. She actually did kind of perk back up in the Oakleaf with the second last time out, and we have to figure she's going to at least be forwardly placed in here, right?
Right, front running speed without a doubt. And the last 6 out of the last 12 years, the front running pace setter going wire to wire was the winner for this race.
Here, then to the outside, we have Lassie, who will likely be the favorite, probably between the 10 and the 3. I think vie for favoritism.
Yeah, the 10 Scottish Lassie, you know, they give a morning line of 5-2 odds. And this horse won the Grade 1 Frisette at the beginning of this month, at the beginning of October, with a really extremely impressive performance. Won it by 9 lengths after closing from 2 lengths back, and earned a 90 buyer for that race. So I think it's kind of interesting that his trainer Abreu put her in the Frisette as a maiden with like not a super stellar first out. So I think he absolutely knew what he had, that she was something special. She was even bumped at the break and handwritten out in that race. So I really do think that Scottish Lassie is something special in here.
Well, let's get to our selections now. Let's see how we all will finalize our thoughts on this race. Tyler, let's start with you. Who are you going to put on top, and talk us through your picks here?
All right, my top contender here is Immersive, followed by Vodka with a Twist, also Scottish Lassie, and Noonie actually is my 4th, which is a little pressing, but I'm trying to get a little bit more.
We both have Vodka with a Twist as a price play to maybe use underneath. Alexa, go through your selections for us.
I do too.
Nice.
It's my 4th pick in the race. But yeah, my top pick is Scottish Lassie. I do think she's something special. And then the number 4, La Cara, followed by the number 3, Immersive, and then Vodka with a Twist.
Yeah, I mean, this was a race that I thought could go in a few different directions. I thought La Cara showed some versatility to me, because I love the fact that La Cara won on the front end, 2 starts back, and then in the Pocahontas, when things didn't go her way, had to show us completely different tactics, a completely different dimension. So I thought that was a horse that you really wanted to include. The 10's probably the horse to beat. Immersive, I feel like both Immersive and Scottish Lassie kind of measuring sticks for this race. And then the fun price we all included was Vodka with the Twist there. So the 4 on top, La Cara will be one of the plays for me. Now, Tyler, you are going to step off for a minute, and then you're going to come back and talk pick 5 with us, right? You put together a pick 5 with Alexa. We're going to finish up the Friday Breeders' Cup races. Will's going to jump back on. We're going to talk Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf in just a moment. So big thank you to Tyler. He'll be back in just a moment. Will jump on. We've got Roberto, who's going to come and hang out with us and talk with us about all of the Saturday Breeders' Cup races on those. So and we also have, for some of you out there who are interested, you see these graphics, maybe you want to take a look at home. We always have an opportunity to give you something free for the Sports Grid viewers that are out there. You can try these out for yourself. Visit drf.com.
Fixed that hitch. He now shoots it at the top of his jump, his release is really pure. And right now he's shooting it at 49% from 3. Now I'm not saying he's going to shoot at 49% from 3 for the season, But if he's at 42, 43%, Lord have mercy, look out below. Jason Tatum, right now, my number 6 player in the NBA.
Betting above the rim. Only on Sports Grid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on Sports Grid.
Welcome back to the Breeders' Cup Handicapping Special. We are going to finish up our individual race previews of the Friday Breeders' Cup races. We have the Juvenile Fillies Turf to discuss, and Will is back along with us. And Will, I gotta say, I was so excited to see Lake Victoria show up in this race because I think with the younger horses, I feel like we usually don't see horses this good show up here. Usually we will see horses maybe that are really prestigious, that are older, that have already have some nice accolades that come here, or maybe like some of the B string for the juvenile races. This is probably one of the more highly regarded horses I can remember coming out here in a while.
Exactly, and we've been talking so far about how open and competitive the races are, and maybe here we've got a race, and we may well be very wrong, but it just maybe looks like she's a bit head and
I feel
shoulders
the same way too.
above this field, and I'd be delighted to be proved wrong, but one of the things that I look at is just how comfortably she's won her first 2 races. Very tellingly, one of our statistics is how sort of vehemently she hit the line, so run out speed. I think you guys use it in Breeze Up Land. So what's the speed 2 seconds after the finish line? So like, are you really powering through your race? She would rank top on that measure over 6 furlongs on her first race, and then again over 7 furlongs on her second race. And now she's going over 8 furlongs a mile. In other words, she's faster than the rest of the field as she goes through that line. She's crying out for another furlong. So on top of the fact that she's, kind of won comfortably those first 2 races, means that bodes well. And let's face it, Aidan O'Brien, Coolmore, winning a race that's not, we're all thinking about City of Troy. This is a story we've heard before, kind of like dominating another race, and perhaps the big guy, he's got a big battle to fight, but he's not brought 25 horses over here not to have one win a race quite impressively.
Yeah, and this is the one that will probably be the shortest price favorite on Friday, and maybe one of the shorter of the 2 weekends, and I really wouldn't be shocked to see like a powerful performance from Lake Victoria. A couple horses to mention outside of Lake Victoria, Nitrogen, who flashed some speed in the Natalma last time out, has shown the ability to sit off the pace a little bit. Coretto was 3rd in the Grade 2 Miss Grillo. I think if you're looking for a price play in here, maybe the 4 Scythian for Bill Mott, whose 2 grass races are very good and has the type of running style that's really kind and friendly. She can adapt to different racing styles, and she can always put herself in the race just sitting a couple lengths out of it. So maybe a horse here with some value that you can use along with Lake Victoria and a couple others in the exotics. Alexa, let's get to, I'll mention Totally Justified also, who was the runner-up in the Jessamine behind Mayday Ready. That was a 3-horse photo, a wicked tight photo right on the wire. Mayday Ready got the better of Totally Justified there. That would have been 2 in a row for Totally Justified. Now you can take the baton, Alexa.
All right, number 6 is Virgin Colada. It's interesting. Chad Brown has won this race 6 times, and no other trainer has won it more than once. So this really is his wheelhouse. However, this is his only entrant in it this year, and I'm not super impressed. I don't think Virgin Colada is going to have much to say here. A big closer, but there's just stronger here. The number 7 Thought Process from Phil D'Amato's barn is the 5-2 morning line favorite. And currently running races fast enough to win this one. Undefeated since switching to the turf. Has been favored in every turf start, and will again likely take a lot of money this Friday. And in the Grade 3 Surfer Girl that she won at Santa Anita, her comment is drew off and coasted late. So, you know, I don't think we have seen her ceiling yet. And
I kind of come in on thought process.
Yes.
So the data talks quite favorably about thought process in terms of ranking, you know, second or third across most metrics. So that's a versatile horse that kind of has pretty long stride, pretty high stride frequency. So she's got, you know, a capability to be in the mix here, definitely at a decent price.
Absolutely. Number 8 is Heaven's Gate from Aidan O'Brien's barn, a 12-1 morning line, so a bit longer odds. Has never gone more than 7 furlongs, but time form figures have improved with the added distance every time. Won a Group 3 last out. And again, Aidan O'Brien's contenders need to be looked at because he does really well when he brings them over to the U.S. for the first time.
I'm going to roll through a couple of these. Kilwin and Abiento, they actually faced against each other in the Untappable. Kilwin's 2 for 2. Abiento was 3rd in the Untappable, came back and won the Matron following that. Will, what do quick thought on Fiery Lucy?
Well, can I back you up on Kilwin?
Absolutely.
So if this is a crawl, so a slow pace, and then they kind of kick for home, so if it's slowed up by the leader, that will fancy Kilwin massively. She has the highest stride frequency by some distance in this race. She can do 2.4 strides a second on a 23.5 foot stride, which is massive. Again, that's more like a 6.5 furlong type horse. So yeah, if there's a slow pace and you can vet in running, which you can't in the States, but you can in the UK, throw some money on Kilwin.
Interesting long shot Fiery Lucy, Mayday ready, 3 for 3, undefeated. And Vixen and Anshota round out the field. Will, give me 5 seconds. Give us your top selections here.
So yeah, so I'm not going to look beyond number 1, Lake Victoria. I'm going to give a bit of a shout for number 7, Thought Process. Then number 9, Kilwin. Then number 13, Vixen.
Can they beat Lake Victoria?
Lake Victoria Thought Process is my exacta.
Yeah, those are the horses to beat. Maybe Scythian include to find some value. We'll take a quick break. Will, thank you so much for hanging out with us. When we return, we'll talk Pick 5 on Friday with Tyler.